This is the scene where at least 7 people were killed when the commuter train collided with an SUV. It struck at the height of rush hour. ABC's Lindsay Davis is in Hawthorne, New York, with the very latest for us this morning. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, Robin. The governor of New York calling this crash site behind me ugly and brutal. While the cause remains under investigation, what we know at this time is that an SUV, for some unknown reason at this time, stopped or stalled on the tracks. The driver then got out, looked at the back of the car, then got back in, drove forward, and that's when the vehicle was struck. Overnight, a devastating scene on these train tracks just north of New York City.
This is probably the worst tragedy I've ever responded to.
This commuter train smashing into a Jeep Cherokee, stuck trying to cross the tracks, sparking a massive blaze that consumed the front of the train. 7 people killed in the crash, including the driver of the SUV. At least a dozen more injured. The fire so hot, it melted the windows off the train side.
Screaming, yelling, it was just total panic.
Some of the at least 750 passengers on board jumping to safety.
The third rail of the track came up from the explosion and went right through the car.
The crash occurred at 6:30 p.m. Cell phone footage capturing the chaos. You can see the smoke billowing out of the first car.
There was a passenger that ran past me. He had blood on his face.
The mangled SUV pushed 400 feet by the force of the collision, now appearing to be attached to the front of the train. Rick Hope was in the car right behind it.
The gate came down and hit the back of the car in front of me. She was trying to make it to the other side.
From above, you can see the massive emergency response, flashing lights up and down the rail line. At least 400 passengers taken by bus to a local gym for shelter and triage. Later, Governor Cuomo arrived to survey the damage of what is now the deadliest crash in Metro North history.
So it is truly a devastatingly ugly situation to see.
The rail line has been under intense scrutiny after a series of crashes, including one in 2013 that left 4 commuters dead after the conductor fell asleep. Metro North is the nation's second busiest railroad, carrying about 280,000 commuters each day. The National Transportation Safety Board is currently investigating what went wrong here. Robin.
All right, Lindsay, thank you very much. And joining us now is Chris Gross, who was riding the first car of that train. Chris, thank you for joining us. And how are you this morning? Did you suffer any injuries?
I didn't. Luckily enough, I walked out unscathed. I had a second hit of adrenaline at like 2:30, so I didn't sleep a single minute.
And where were you in the car?
I was in the very front of the first car, behind the first set of 5 seats. So there's a 5-seater and then a 2-seater, 4-seater, and a 2-seater. I was in the 2-seater behind a 5-seater.
Did you see what was about to happen? Were you able to brace at all?
Not at all. I had my laptop open watching Mel Brooks' movie, and all of a sudden, impact.
And tell us what happened when that impact occurred.
People started falling over each other. It was so quick. I saw flames, beams, the guy sitting in the 5-seater. I started screaming, turned over and looked. He lost his leg right underneath his knee. And the guy sitting across in the 4-seater had a compound fracture, similar area. And then once I fell right in the middle between those 2 seats, I saw flames coming at me about a foot from my head.
How were you able to get out of the car?
One of the people who was burnt, both his hands were burnt. He elbowed the emergency exit latch and started to pull the door open.
We were talking before we went on the air, and you never know how you're going to react, and it just something just kicks in.
It was one of those things where I was just like, I don't know, it's life or death at this point.
And you were able to get out of the car, of the train, and we saw the footage, the video that you shot, and the flames that were coming out. Were there any train personnel, or was there anybody telling people what they should do?
Not at all. Like I said before, the guy who opened up the door jumped out, stuck his hands in the snow, and people were just, everybody on the train, including myself, were helping people get off.
And you had no idea how that you had struck an SUV?
Either the engineer or the conductor got over the speaker and said that we hit a car. I had no idea until I got off and turned around and saw a car.
Mm-hmm. Were people, I can imagine, helping, just doing whatever they could to help fellow passengers?
I was, second I hopped out, I turned around, helped a few people off, called 911.
Well, Chris, thank you. I know it's a difficult time for you, and to share your story, and you and I and others are thinking of those families who lost a loved one and who are affected, but we're grateful that you and so many came out unscathed. Thank you, Chris. All the best going forward.
Thank you.
George.
Just a horrifying scene. We're going to move on now to that deadly plane crash breaking overnight as well. Here you're going to see the plane going down shortly after takeoff, clipping that bridge right there, then ending up in a river. ABC's David Curley is tracking the latest developments. Good morning, David.
Good morning, George. Those pictures are striking. A nearly brand new plane crashing. There are survivors, but many victims, too.
These are the last seconds of TransAsia Flight 235 as it clips a bridge and crashes into a river. Watch again. Dashcam video provided by TVBS catching the turboprop dipping its left wing as it crosses the bridge with 58 on board. Rescue workers took to inflatable boats to get to the fuselage in Taipei's Qinglong River, pulling survivors, including children, from the wreckage. But there are many dead and many passengers still listed as missing. The twin-engine French-built ATR was just recently delivered. It took off just before 11 in the morning from the Taiwan capital, headed to some nearby islands. But just moments after takeoff, the pilot radios he's lost an engine. Moments later, these tragic and striking scenes as the plane crosses the bridge, hitting it and injuring a taxi driver before crashing into the river.
An airliner of any size is a metallic eggshell. When used as designed, it's very strong, but if you smack a bridge with it, it's going to come apart and do terrible damage to anybody who is in the back portion of the airplane.
This is the second deadly crash for TransAsia in less than a year. This morning, the head of the airline apologizes and says it's too early to know what happened here, as survivors are being treated in local hospitals.
At last report, there were 15 survivors, 23 are dead, another 20 are missing, so that death count could go up. The black box has been recovered. We should get a good idea what happened to this aircraft. George, it should have been able to fly on one engine. Something went wrong.
Yeah, such a mystery. Okay, David, thank you.